a lot of subclinical nutrient insufficiencies that are a part of ADHD and a lot of the other issues going on. So we find this can be really helpful, and all the patients that I have worked with over the years with ADHD find that they can use less of their ADHD medication as a result, which is a bonus because those can affect appetite, those have side effects.
Behavioral Health Integrations podcast strives to inspire the next generation of mental health and addiction specialists. Our aim is to continue to raise awareness and encourage collaboration in the mental health and addiction industry so that it will continue to thrive. There are numerous approaches to treating mental health and substance abuse issues. On this show, we take pleasure in showcasing the diversity of these approaches used to improve the lives of others. So without further ado, your host, Jacob Menig.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another awesome and special behavioral health integration episode. Today I have the great honor and pleasure of having Nicole Laurent on my show. Nicole is a licensed therapist with over 15 years experience who specializes in ketogenic therapies for mental health and addiction. Throughout this episode, we're going to talk about many aspects that, again, affect mental health, especially as it comes to nutrition, gut bacteria, gut health, and overall wellness. I, for one, am truly excited to learn more about the ketogenic diet and how it can have a powerful effect on your mental health. So without further ado, let's begin.
Well, again, I am so honored to have you on the show. It's not very often where I have a therapist on my show with an expertise in nutrition, health, and I think we're going to get into a lot of good avenues.
Yeah, it's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. But first off, what made you want to get into the mental health field in the first place?
Well, let's see. I took a long time to figure out kind of what I wanted to do, and I was starting a program for project management because I'm pretty good at organization, and they wanted me to learn to code, and I decided I do not want to learn to code. And I looked around and all the books were about healthy relationships, and I thought, maybe I should go into psychology, and so that's what I did.
So coding is like IT stuff, right?
Yeah, software. They wanted me to learn to write software. I had no interest in that.
My stepmom's program manager, so she works with a lot of those people, so I can get an idea of what that was like.
I didn't even pick up the book to attempt. I immediately switched focus. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I was briefly thinking about that because someone told me they could train you in, and when my stepmom and that found out, she's like, Jake, no, absolutely not. You will absolutely hate it. Do not do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where did you go to school for psychology?
For psychology, I went to Argosy University in Seattle. It was formerly Washington School of Professional Psychology. They got acquired while I was there.
Okay.
So yeah, I went in the Seattle area.
Is Argosy still around in that part of the country?
I am not sure. I think that was a satellite campus, and I'm not sure if it's still there. But I know they have a very big campus in Washington, D.C., so they're still an institutional body.
Okay, just in Minnesota a few years back, they shut down over here, so that's all I was kind of interested in asking.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Corporate workings.
Yeah, absolutely. You graduated with your master's degree. What was your first job?
I went immediately into private practice. So
Nice.
I just started immediately seeing clients. And I've been in private practice for 16 years now.
So you could just go into private practice right away without being fully licensed as a therapist?
In Washington State, there was a registered counselor license, and then there was a licensed mental health counselor associate license, and you simply can start seeing clients under those licenses until you acquire supervision hours. So I started with one of those and then got the hours and finished my licensure out.
Okay, and I take it it's probably 2,000-3,000 hours of supervision probably for...
I can't remember. It was a long time ago when I acquired it, but yeah, it's a huge amount for sure.
Okay, absolutely. And then what's your style as a therapist? Are you more humanistic or are you more psychoanalytic, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no, so I think all the psychotherapy orientations have to be based on humanistic to be effective at all in
Right.
treatment.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah,
I came from
but
Adler, so yeah.
yeah, a little person-centered is the
Yep.
foundation, right? And
Yep.
so but I am more cognitive behavioral,
Okay.
dialectical behavioral, EMDR, behavioral focused.
Okay. So you're EMDR certified?
I'm not, well, certified, you mean like as a consultant or just I'm EMDR trained for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, trained. Yep.
Yeah. I have a fantastic friend who is a consultant and she's so good with EMDR. She's fantastic. So yeah,
Yeah.
the consultancy is great.
I asked that because I passed my licensing exam. I should be almost fully licensed probably in February, but EMDR is one of the first ones I want to go for.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Um, so once you get certified EMDR, what do you have to do to be a consultant like your friend?
Oh my gosh,
Well,
it's a haul. Yeah,
yeah.
it's really a lot of work, which is
Oh,
part
just
of
being
why.
certified as a whole, I mean, it's very expensive in general, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So she's a master at this and she teaches others and she has that. She's actually her name is Jocelyn Fitzgerald and she
Okay.
is in the Vancouver area and you could probably contact her and get her on the show. She's great.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And she'll
absolutely.
tell you all about it. But yeah, she actually went to Ethiopia and did
Really?
EMDR using art therapy integration, and wrote a paper on that. And she's written chapters in EMDR textbooks. So she's quite the expert.
That's what I love about it and how you can incorporate other therapeutic modalities to again help the client.
Hmm.
Like you said, art therapy, so you can mix in like sanitary therapy or other aspects of art therapy with the EMDR. I find that
Yeah.
so fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of creativity allowed in EMDR for sure.
No, and it reminds me of the other modality. Have you ever heard of like art, not like art therapy, but like the art that's somewhat similar to EMDR?
No, I don't think I have.
I think it's called like assertive resolution therapy, and they take a lot of aspects from EMDR and they kind of make it their own
Oh,
module. So
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. Yep. So what really inspired you? So applying again nutrition, can you get a little bit more into that and how you apply nutrition with your
Yeah.
clients? And did you always start with that, or did you gain a love for it
That
over
came
time?
much, much later. So I had a neurological issue,
Oh,
and it caused me a lot. So I had a chronic pain syndrome, and then
oh
I
no.
ended up having some cognitive decline that came from the chronic pain syndrome, and so that then I used a ketogenic diet to help with the cognitive symptoms. I learned about it on a podcast from a researcher, and that put my brain back on. I had stage 1 symptoms of cognitive decline. I didn't have Alzheimer's, but I had that level of impairment. I thought I was going to have to retire my practice. And
Yeah.
it made such a huge difference that once you go through something like that, that's kind of transformative, you have to understand how it works. And one of the things that I noticed was that I didn't identify as having anxiety. I had great skills as a therapist. I knew my DBT skills, I knew my CBT, I knew how to manage any anxiety that kind of came up, and I would have never identified myself as an anxious person. But the shift in how your brain works on a ketogenic diet is so pronounced that I just was so chill. I was like, oh my gosh, I was walking around anxious and overwhelmed all the time, and I didn't even know it. And I thought my clients have to know about this because,
Yeah.
you'll find this the longer you practice. Um, you get people where you're their fifth therapist. They're on their sixth medication that's failed, right?
Yeah.
And and it was such a profound kind of shift in mood that I knew people had to learn about this. So then I started to get training in functional psychiatry and
Yeah.
not prescribing psychiatry. I'm a
Hmm.
non-prescriber, but you can still practice principles of functional and nutritional psychiatry and psychology in your practice. And then I went and I got trained in how to use ketogenic diets as a treatment for mental illness and neurological disorders. And
Oh.
so that's how I came upon it.
So what is actually in the ketogenic diet? What is that all about? Is it like protein, carbs? What does that look like?
So probably the easiest way to kind of talk about the ketogenic diet is to first talk about the difference between nutritional psychology and metabolic psychology or psychiatry. I'll use those terms intermittently
Yeah.
together. Um, so nutritional psychology is about increasing micronutrient intake so that you have the cofactors you need for your brain to function, right? So you
Okay.
need certain micronutrients and minerals as part of the pathway to make your neurotransmitters, to clean up oxidative stress, all that good stuff. And it also really likes to study the effect of certain foods on mood and to some degree cognitive function. Nutritional psychology is very interested in gut microbiome and
Yep.
the effects around that. I think everybody is. But uh, in metabolic psychiatry or metabolic psychology is one step up from that in that it actually shifts the fuel source in the brain. It actually changes the metabolism in the brain in terms of how it makes energy and the cascading effects of
Oh,
doing that. And so metabolic psychiatry has its roots in neurology for over 100 years. This metabolic therapy, ketogenic metabolic therapy, or we'll call it ketogenic diet, even though I
yeah.
know many therapists do not like the word diet, but that is
Hmm.
what the literature has called it for many, many years. So we'll just use language as it originates.
Yeah.
Is the ketogenic diet's been used for over 100 years to treat intractable seizures where medications
Wow.
have failed. So that just kind of gives you an idea. So nutritional psychology and psychiatry does not stop seizures.
Okay. Yeah.
Ketogenic diet and metabolic psychology does. So blueberries and salmon, yes, they're great for your cognitive health and they give you the things you need for your mood, but it doesn't completely shift the energy system in the brain. And
Okay.
so ketogenic diets will shift the energy production in the brain from glucose. Now,
Yep.
let me caveat that because people are going to write in and say, oh no, Nicole's wrong. Brains use glucose. Yes, there are some parts of the brain that utilize glucose, but you do not have to eat your glucose. You have a mechanism in your body called gluconeogenesis,
Hmm.
which creates glucose as a substrate on an as needed basis. So you don't have to eat your carbohydrates. So when we restrict carbohydrate ingestion on a ketogenic diet, it it turns on machinery that exists in your body that understands and knows how to use fat for fuel. And it
Okay.
will break down fatty acids into these ketones, and these ketones can bypass broken machinery in the brain, causing metabolic issues and provide a fantastic energy source.
Okay.
And so you have parts of the brain that start to work better.
Yeah.
And the other fascinating thing about ketogenic diets, metabolic therapy, is that some of the ketones that are produced, there's three different ketones that are produced.
Hmm.
One of them is called BHB or beta hydroxybutyrate. That is a molecular signaling body that has multiple neuroprotective effects on the brain, and helps the brain work better and help the membrane potential fire better and all kinds of fantastic things. So there is nothing for brains like a ketogenic diet.
Okay. Wow. I have so many awesome questions. So when you work with a client, so is there a particular order it has to go in? Like, do you need to start with nutrition psychology, then transition to metabolic psychology? Would that make sense?
It depends what's going on. Um, so many people do not need a ketogenic diet in order to work on that bio pillar of the biopsychosocial model, right?
Okay.
I have a lot of teenagers who have very poor diets. There's no way they are getting the micronutrients they need. So, and they're not eating enough bioavailable protein. So we do things like put them on a broad spectrum micronutrient, which is just a big vitamin,
Okay.
basically vitamin and mineral. And then we give them some free-form amino acids and they have huge improvements. Uh, Moving to more of a paleo diet, for example, or some other diet that does not have a bunch of highly processed foods can do absolute wonders for most people's mental health. There's really a misunderstanding about the effects of those foods on brain health in terms of their depletion of existing micronutrients and the fact that they don't have enough micronutrients and the fact that they're always very poor in protein. And protein breaks down to amino acids. If you want your neurotransmitters, you need to have healthy amounts of amino acids, right? Yep. So that's often the first place that I start with many people. But if I have someone with really treatment resistant depression, and I have someone with schizoaffective disorder or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or a serious mental illness, a serious anxiety disorder, I will often introduce them to a ketogenic diet as a treatment for mental illness right off the bat.
Do you ever have to be aware, like, on what kind of medications they're taking too? Like, let's say if they're taking like certain antidepressants or certain antipsychotics, like lithium or whatnot, does that play a role in how you, again, prescribe nutrition and food?
It does not play a role in what I prescribe, but I will tell you how it's very relevant, particularly with ketogenic diets. So people come to treatment and therapy on all kinds of medications. And what we see happen almost always, I've always seen it. I've never heard of a practitioner who practices this where this hasn't happened to some degree, is they're on this dosage of medication. And as their brain health improves, as they get a healthier brain, as things heal, suddenly the medication dosage that they were on is too high.
Okay.
And they will start to get side effects from that medication that if they're not working with a knowledgeable practitioner, they will think is a recurrence or a relapse of their mental illness. But in fact, all we need to do, or all their prescriber needs to do, because I'm not a prescriber, is reduce the medication, begin titrating down. So, and it's very easy. They find in a few days, they feel a lot better. And then they know that's what it was. Right. So it's very dangerous for people to do powerful metabolic brain therapies like the ketogenic diet without the help of a prescriber to help them monitor their medications. It's really that powerful. It's its own medication. Remember, this treats seizures. This stops seizures. So you kind of have to think of a ketogenic diet as this additional really powerful medicine that we're throwing into the cocktail that these people are already coming into session with. And usually often less medication is more when it comes to people who are on a ketogenic diet.
Very interesting. So pretty much what you're saying is that it really cures and heals the body and helps it function more efficiently. So again, it doesn't need that much help from certain medications, right? That's why it's too strong, because it's working better.
Yes. So if I pulled you off the street, let's say you're feeling great and you're not on any medications, and I give you a big old dose of an anti-seizure med, how are you going to feel? How are those side effects going to be?
Not so good.
Not so good. Bingo. And so, so this, these people that are on these large amounts of medications, you add the ketogenic diet, suddenly the amount is too high.
Yep. It
needs to be monitored.
Well, I can imagine, especially with a client, let's say, who's on Adderall for their ADHD, that they require less stimulation from medication because, again, their body's functioning at a higher level.
Absolutely. And the ketogenic diets that we use for a treatment of mental illness and neurological issues are actually very well formulated and very nutrient dense and super healthy, and brains love them. We find that a lot of subclinical nutrient insufficiencies that are a part of ADHD and a lot of the other issues going on. So we find this can be really helpful. And all the patients that I have worked with over the years with ADHD find that they can use less of their ADHD medication as a result, which is a bonus because, those can affect appetite. Those have side effects.
Okay. So how about another scenario? Let's say you're working with an adult like me. Would you begin therapy, like you said, similar to a teenager when it comes to first my diet? Let's just say I don't have the best diet in the world. So would you want me to express more about what my diet is currently like, what I currently eat at the moment, or would you just give me a whole new diet right away?
I get people who come to me specifically for the ketogenic diet as a specialty. And then I also get, I take insurance here in Washington State, so
Hmm.
I get a little bit of everybody, and that's great.
Yep.
And so really it's about doing an assessment about where you are, how
Yep.
miserable you are, what because the people that I meet are desperate. Like
Right.
they are miserable and they are willing to do anything it takes. And then some people are like, I'd like to feel a little better. What could I do? What can
Right.
I add? And we always have to talk about micronutrients, highly processed foods and the effects. So that was usually sometimes the very first things we do is be like, take out the processed food. Just if it comes in
Yeah.
a box in the middle of the store, don't eat it. It's not really food. I know it
Yep.
fills your belly, but it doesn't actually nourish you in a way that is consistent with your goals of feeling
Right.
good in your brain. So we often start there. And then we would explore and see if that did the trick. And if not, then we would just keep going.
Okay. I don't, have you ever heard of, I'm sure you have, like genetic testing as it
Mhm.
comes to like food?
Yeah.
Or I've never had it done, but that could be like another way, right? To find out like what nutrients you're naturally deficient in due to your, I guess, DNA, right?
Yes. So I do nutrigenomics analysis,
Oh,
and
wow.
that is actually very powerful. I know it sounds really fancy, but it's not. It's not that hard.
Okay.
You just look at some people's, SNPs, and those SNPs will tell you really important information.
What's a
So
SNP?
a SNP is a single nucleotide polymorphism. We know it in the general public as a mutation. It's not really a
Oh,
mutation. There's too many people with that particular SNP combo for it to be like this mutation.
wow. Okay. Yep.
But it's a difference in your gene that affects your need for bioavailable forms of
Okay.
micronutrients. So, for example, for me, I I know from my genetic SNPs that I cannot convert beta carotene into vitamin A.
Okay.
I have to take cod liver oil or retinol palmitate, some bioavailable form. My body just does not do well with that pathway. And that explains a lot because as I got older, I started getting kind of night blind when I was driving. And I was like, I don't know
Yep.
what's happening here. But then I was like, oh, that's the problem. I do not make enough choline. I have SNPs that impair my choline production, and that is huge. I cannot tell you how many people with ADHD are walking around with choline SNPs. Choline is a precursor, or it's one of the backbones to acetylcholine.
Uh-huh.
Acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter that helps you focus and do about a million other things. So people who have chronic brain fog or problems focusing, we look at their genetic SNPs, and sometimes that's a game changer for them to just know that they need to supplement choline. And while they would love to be able to just get it from their food, some of these SNPs you would have to eat 8 or 9 eggs a day for the
Oh,
rest of your
wow.
life to get just enough choline to survive and do okay as opposed to
Jeez.
thrive. So this idea that you can always get everything from food doesn't always work for people. There's also SNPs around vitamin D, magnesium. I'm probably forgetting some, but you get the
Right.
ideas.
So how would someone like me obtain this like testing kit? I'm sure you take blood, right? And they run that through the lab and
It is super easy. So all
wow,
you
okay.
have to do is you go get your data from 23andMe or
Oh, okay.
Ancestry DNA.
Okay.
And then you download your raw report, your raw data.
Okay.
You can search on their site, download raw data, and it'll give you the instructions. And then you get your raw data and you go on to the website that I like. Now you can purchase really expensive reports and stuff like that. Like they're $300, $500, but you can also go to a site called geneticlifehacks.com, which is
Okay.
run by a genomic specialist named Debbie Moon. She's amazing. And you can upload your data there and it will generate all these reports. And there's a nutrition report that will, you might have, it won't tell you you need to supplement this amount, but it will give you a clue that, oh, I have a lot of red, or orange or this, going on there.
Okay.
I need to maybe pay attention to that.
Is
So
red deficient?
I I think not deficient. So
Okay.
it's not testing your blood in this moment. It's testing your instructions for how you utilize or don't utilize that nutrient.
Okay.
So if you show up with, lots of SNPs and for vitamin A, where it's, not the color you want, it's not green, then oh, maybe I need to supplement that. And vitamin A is really important for brain health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm curious, have you ever ran into the situation where, especially in this country, as we know, usually the good healthy foods are more expensive? Have you ever had a client who did not have the financial means to, again, get the diet that is more optimal for them due to their like financial situation?
So yes, I've worked with people on low income,
Okay.
or who were working with someone else with low income. And so, here's the thing. Highly processed foods are expensive. When you look at pound for pound in terms of your actual nutrient content you get from them, it's not a good deal. You're not getting a
Hmm.
good deal. You're getting chronic illness is what's
Yeah.
happening. It's not,
Yeah.
you're not saving a buck that you're going to be able to do later. So I have people who buy the absolute cheapest eggs at the store. I
Yep.
have people who buy lots of canned sardine and canned tuna and canned chicken. And they do great with ketogenic diets with that. They buy the cheapest meat, the cheapest ground beef. Like, you can heal. You don't need to have grass-fed, pasture-raised everything.
Hmm.
You just need nutrient bioavailability, and that is present in those substances.
Have you ever had a client that just fell in love with a new health food that like, oh my God, I never thought I would like this, but I love it.
Oh yeah. So it's funny with the ketogenic diet, about two weeks in or so, 3 weeks, sometimes four, they'll be like, I can't do this anymore. This is hard. I can't just go to the bar and get the fried food. I can't,
Yeah.
and they just get kind of frustrated with it. But at 3 months, they're like, this is great.
Yeah.
They're like, this is easy. This is not a big deal. I don't know why I was having such a hard time in the beginning. It's just an adjustment period. But
Well,
yeah, people love this food.
isn't it like an addiction, like a food addiction to some degree because of that, how good it tastes, maybe because of the sugars, the salt, and all that
It's
stuff?
absolutely engineered to make you buy it. It is
Yeah.
absolutely engineered to hijack your
Yep.
neurochemistry around eating. It is not a food, it is a drug. And I
Hmm.
know clinical psychology does not like the idea of food addiction. They do not like the idea of restriction.
Mm.
So much so, I have to tell you this story. Just,
Yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe I shouldn't. It's kind of negative. So there is I am promoting my continuing
Hmm.
education training for
Nice.
metabolic psychiatry for non-prescribers.
Yep.
And I wanted to post in this Facebook group of therapists here in Vancouver, Washington, people around this area. And they wanted me to change the word diet in ketogenic diets. And I
Okay.
said, I have a problem with that because that's what the research literature calls it.
Yeah.
And this is a group of mental health professionals who are
Hmm.
very smart. I think they have the capability to keep the word diet in context
Yeah.
for what it is. And also, where is the interest and curiosity? If you're concerned that this is promoting a diet culture, well, then just simply ask me about the diet. I promise you, nobody cares about when we're doing this for mental illness. We don't care about weight loss. That's
Yeah.
not the purpose. It's to overhaul brain metabolism.
Right.
So I think there's a real disconnect in clinical psychology
Hmm.
around, oh my God, we can't restrict no matter what. Like, it's absolutely going to cause an eating disorder. But when we look at the research literature, that is based on theory and associational data. Whereas on a ketogenic diet, we have people being treated for binge eating disorder
Hmm.
using a ketogenic diet. And it's just not at some, uh, wacky center somewhere with a bunch of holistic physicians. This is Stanford Metabolic Psychiatry Clinic treating people with ketogenic diets who have eating disorders. There is a randomized controlled trial
Yeah.
going on right now using
Okay.
ketogenic diets with anorexia. They
Wow.
don't let you do an RCT without an evidence base to show that there might be benefit, both in biological mechanisms. I mean, this
Yeah.
has a research base. So there's a huge disconnect in clinical psychology around these two, and they're going to have to learn to play. Because if a clinical psychologist warns off someone with bipolar disorder
Yep.
or schizophrenia from a ketogenic diet when they walk in their office and they're like, I've heard this helps. What do you think? And they're like, oh no, you're going to get an eating disorder. That
Oh
is
my
an
God.
ethical issue
Yep.
because that could have been the one treatment that put that bipolar disorder at schizophrenia in remission. And that is what we are seeing. So we've got to educate this whole field about this issue.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying one disorder is more horrendous or more negative than the other, but when you brought up eating disorders, I don't know what it's like over there, but in the state of Minnesota, it is one of the most difficult disorders to help individuals with. It's
Yeah.
such a destructive, evil, nasty disorder, and we're struggling to help people with it over here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Our current treatments are
it's
not very
they're
effective
not
or
working. They're
not very
not, let's just say it,
helpful.
they're not like something's not working. Not all of
That's
them, but
not working.
yeah.
Yeah. And these are deadly diseases. Anorexia is deadly. And
Yes.
even when we get people weight stable, they still deal with obsessions around food and body image. They're not healed. That's not
Yeah.
enough to just get them weight stable and keep them alive. We can do better. And with bipolar disorder, the suicide rate is 60% for bipolar disorder. So my God, if someone is warning someone off of a ketogenic diet because they have a treatment paradigm around restriction, that is an
Mhm.
ethical issue and that is a professional issue. And so we really need to work to let people know about that.
Yeah, no, this is all great stuff. And I'm also kind of interested too of the integration between the nutritional aspect and the mental health. So when you work with the client and you start working on like the nutrition psychology and metabolic psychology, do you apply it? Let's say if there's a client with depression, like, okay, how has this diet helped your depression or your trauma? Do you get into those kind of, I'm sorry, those type of avenues when you're again working with the client?
Yeah. Well, it depends what we're working on. So I find that my psychotherapy techniques
Mhm.
work a lot better on even a slightly better working brain.
Okay.
So that's part of the promise when I was in school, 15
Yep.
years ago or whatever. That was the promise was that we put people on medication and they're better able to respond to therapy. You'll have to tell me, are they still teaching that paradigm?
Which one?
The piece where someone with depression or anxiety, if we give them medication, then they're better able to do psychotherapy and get better.
Yeah, yeah, it's a combination. It's a combination
Yeah.
of both.
Yeah. They tell you the combination
That's
is the
optimal.
key, right? Yeah, that's optimal.
Yeah.
That has not been my experience over these many years. And that
Yep.
has not been the experience of a lot of therapists over these many years. And so that was the promise was that this medication piece, I am finding that the use of nutritional therapies and metabolic therapies for the brain, like the ketogenic diet, finally gives that promise. I find that the psychotherapy that I do works way better using those modalities as opposed to
Mhm.
sending people out for medication.
Can I give you this example and you tell me what you think of it? Sometimes people make
Mm-hmm.
the argument of, let's say you have a client who has extreme anxiety and the benefit of medication, let's just say for even the short term, is hopefully the anxiety medication can calm the client down just enough so you can get some therapeutic work done in the session compared to like if they weren't on medication, they're too hyper, they couldn't manage their, let's say, traumatic symptoms or behaviors, it might make the session more difficult.
Yeah. Well, not even talking about metabolic therapies or
Mhm.
nutritional therapies, I think DBT has answered that, right?
Yeah.
So the idea with DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, which is a treatment modality that's used for the most severely dysregulated
BPD, yeah.
populations, yeah, is that medication can often make it so that people go to that first as opposed to using their skills.
Hmm.
Now, I think that anti-anxiety medication makes perfect sense in very, very acute situations. If someone's lost a child, you know, and could just use a little bridge to kind of help them. I get that for sure. And I've seen it used that way beautifully and be excellent. But I think that it makes it more difficult to do psychotherapy. I think that there's less motivation to work hard in psychotherapy. I think it can cause a dependence, not a physical one necessarily. But although that does exist, I think that there's behaviorally, how are we going to reinforce doing a worksheet? If I can just take a Xanax, why am I just not going to? Why won't I just? I'm not going to get a worksheet out unless I really want to stop the Xanax for whatever reason. I'm finding it's a problem, but it's still I think it undermines psychotherapy to some degree.
Okay.
Because motivation goes down, and I don't think it contributes to long-term success for a lot of people. That's what I've seen. There's probably lots of therapists who would beg to differ.
Okay. I also have a very interesting question too. So when you work with clients, do you ever do a lot of coordination of care with their psychiatrist? And if so, do they ever call you and question your diet? Because again, the client may want to get off their meds or lower their meds, and the psychiatrist might be like, well, what the heck? What's going on? What are you doing? And then they communicate with you about that.
Yeah. So for me to work with someone on the ketogenic diet, they have to have a prescriber.
Okay.
And I always say your prescriber has to know how to titrate down medications, which I think hopefully every psychiatrist has a minimal training in and knows how to do, of course. And then they also have to be what I call collaborative. They have to be such that they will allow you to self-advocate for yourself. Because the reality is we don't yet have enough prescribers that are educated about ketogenic metabolic therapies. When someone starts to get potentiation effects, the psychiatrist's first gut instinct is to add a medication. And that can quite frankly be dangerous on someone on a ketogenic diet who's already showing side effects of increased anxiety and agitation or suicidal ideation. That's scary. We don't want that. And so I'm always happy to talk to psychiatrists as a non-prescriber and let them understand what I see and know as a mental health clinician with my training, although I never give advice about particular medications. But the bottom line is that this is an emerging field of psychiatry. I'm quite sure this is going to end up in medical schools pretty darn quickly. And psychiatrists are going to need to understand and have this on their radar. Now, am I going to have 15 consultations with a psychiatrist trying to get them to reduce medication? No, I'm going to tell the patient, you either need to find a different psychiatrist who is more collaborative really quickly, or I can't work with you and we're going to have to up your carbs and take you out of a ketogenic state.
Okay. Interesting. Help me understand something. The only individuals that are eligible for this practice, you need to have a prescriber. So does that mean, okay, I need to have a psychiatrist. They need to, I don't know, prescribe me antidepressants?
It can be a family doctor. It can be a family doctor. So if you are on no medication, if you're on zero medications, then you can absolutely do a ketogenic diet without a prescriber. You still want to get maybe some blood tests, you know, to kind of to do some baseline blood tests, but your family doctor is happy usually to order that sort of thing. And they check for, there's a few extra things that we kind of check for on ketogenic diets, like maybe carnitine, you know, some obscure things, but fasting insulin is important. HSCRP, there's different blood work, but you don't need a psychiatrist if you're not on any medications. But if you're on any type of blood sugar modifying medications for diabetes, if you are on high blood pressure medication, you need a prescriber because you might need to be taken off of that in 3 to 7 days. It's that powerful. It changes your blood pressure and suddenly your blood pressure is too low on a ketogenic diet and blood pressure medication, or can be. And then there's some cardio prescriptions, like certain blockers and such, where that needs to be monitored. So if you're on any medications, just understand you should have a prescriber. And then the different psychiatric medications and mood stabilizers. You know, it's funny, psychiatrists use anticonvulsant medication. Anticonvulsants are used for epilepsy and other seizure disorders. They use that off label for mental illness.
Yes.
You know, so if you're on any of those for whatever reason, that's also, so when I say, you know, psychiatric meds, I'm also including those anticonvulsant medications that are used as a mood stabilizer. You do need a prescriber or a family doctor, again, who's collaborative, cooperative, and willing to titrate down without fear if needed.
So I'm just curious, let's say there's a therapist in Minnesota or anywhere and they want to get certified in this like you are. What do they have to do and what does that process look like?
So I want to make clear that there's lots of psychologists, mental health counselors, social workers, other allied mental health professionals that have no interest in nutrition and figuring out how to implement and manage a ketogenic diet.
Right.
That is a very specific skill set. But those people can take my CEU, or there's one at Ellenhorn in Boston that's happening in early November that you can take. So these trainings are coming. How do I support a patient on a ketogenic diet for mental illness? How do I modify my practice targets in session around that and have that be my focus? Those exist. So if you have listeners who want to learn how to support someone with this, but don't want to do the diet, those trainings exist. If you are a mental health clinician that wants to, you're listening to me talk and you're like, holy cow, this is amazing. I want to know how to do this with my people. You will want to take the training from Georgia Eid, MD, and you can find that at diagnosisdiet.com. And there's clinician training up there, and that will give you the training that you need in order to help someone use this for mental illness or a neurological disorder.
Excellent. That's all wonderful information. And again, Nicole, I had such a blast with you on the show. I learned so much. It was so much fun. Before we wrap things up, I just have to ask you your personal goals as a therapist and a clinician. What do you want your goals to be, or what do you want your goals to be in like 5 to 10 years? What do you want for yourself as a professional?
You know, that has kind of changed over the last 5 or 6 years. So, the last 5 or 6 years, I think I just want to keep practicing. I think that I have the goal of training more people so that more people can get support doing this. I'll be honest, after 10 years of psychotherapy, I was a little burned out. And now I'm seeing people get better. I just finished, I have permission to talk about this person. I just got off an email with one of my clients who I've moved to 1 time a week. I wasn't even doing the psychotherapy component. She has a psychotherapist. She came to me, she's 19. And she is in remission from schizophrenia.
That's amazing.
She is all smiles. And she was,
oh my God.
It's very rewarding to see people get better. And so often I was burned out and I thought I was going to retire and do something else. But now that I'm doing this, I'm super excited about my work. I'm super passionate about making sure that I believe everyone has the right to know all the ways they can feel better. And this is one of them. I am determined to see this offered as a standard of care in mental health alongside medications if someone doesn't want to do this. But they have the right to know about this.
And do you just feel like there just needs to be more research for you or for people to make that happen? Just like everything in life, more research?
I think we need RCTs. So I don't know if you remember from school that whole evidence pyramid, right? You know, up here's the RCTs and down here's the anecdotal
FDA
data. So we're at a pretty good evidence base. We've got all the foundation of that pyramid. All we are missing is RCTs. And quite frankly, some of them are published and in peer review right now. So stuff is dropping. And so don't believe that this is not evidence-based because there aren't RCTs. We know a lot about the mechanisms, and there's lots of pilot trials and clinical trials that have happened for a variety of diagnoses. So I think it's coming. I think
Well,
standard of
good.
care is coming.
That's so great to hear. And before we end things, my audience members want to get a hold of you. Would you like to give out your contact information, or is there a way they can message
Sure.
you?
Absolutely. So there's a contact form on my blog, which is mentalhealthketo.com. Lots
Mm-hmm.
of evidence-based articles about different diagnoses and underlying factors and how ketogenic
Mm-hmm.
diets modify those. They can just email me, Nicole at mentalhealthketo.com. And yeah, I'm easy to find.
Excellent. And to all my audience members, I will put all the information in the show notes. It'll be one click away for you. And again, Nicole, I had so much fun. It was a true blessing having you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I again want to thank Nicole for being an awesome special guest on my show. I really learned a lot from her. I just want to thank all of my listeners for your support, and just to inform everyone that the information expressed in this episode was not meant to be taken as therapeutic advice. If you do find yourself struggling with any type of mental health or addiction issues, please seek the care of a medical doctor or a licensed mental health therapist. And if anyone has any further questions for me, you can reach me at my email address, behaviorhealthintegration121@gmail.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Jacob Menig, where you will find more educational posts on psychotherapy, trauma, and addiction. And finally, you can follow me on my website, which is behaviorhealthintegration.org. I also want to inform everyone that there is a great new device out there called CalmiGo. It's a breathing device meant to control and manage your breathing rates and the depth of your breathing as you inhale and exhale to again help relieve any type of anxiety and stress-like symptoms. And if you do put the BHI podcast into the promo code, you get $30 off this amazing device. It is a once-in-a-lifetime deal, and you will not be disappointed. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a good day. Bye.